We're all owned by the Syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 8th episode of The Sin Syndicate, the only podcast that knows all the rules to the old Snatch game and always remembers to underline Choirboy in the ransom note. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And today we're joined by two very special guests from the Lone Star State to talk with us about director Maurice Levy's 1968 Texploitation classic, She-Mob. But before we get girl gangy, Casey, I believe you've got some updates for us regarding the shooting locations of Blue Money that we talked about in our last episode.
Yeah, I think because you had asked on our last episode, first of all, it's been a long time. Good to see you and talk to you again. It's been a while. We went on a brief little hiatus where I have just been deep diving into old seasons of Survivor. But back in the sex game now. So Blue Money, I was reached out to by Patrick Crane, who is kind of the preeminent Bob Chin expert, and I'm really hoping that we can have him on as well to hopefully discuss The Devil's Garden, which is one of Bob's only softcore movies that's still around. We kind of pinpointed that because you'd asked about one of the locations where in the third act where they're shooting the sex scene and get busted by the cops. And we think that we pinpointed that location is Alan Patrick's Marina Del Rey apartment. Mm-hmm. So it was actually his actual home that they shot that in. And he actually was very quick to point out that there are many other Chin films that feature a particular rug that is seen in Blue Money from Alan's apartment, where it's kind of like a little cameo.
They dragged it
and
with
letting
them,
you know
yeah.
that this is basically letting you know this was shot in Alan's apartment because he was, I think, Bob's most frequent collaborator around that time in terms of on the set. So that was a very good conversation, and I really hope we get to. He was supposed to meet up. He had mentioned that he was supposed to meet up with Bob recently, because I think I can say he's working on a book about Bob.
Okay,
long overdue. Yeah, obviously he has a lot. We still have a lot more questions about the production of that film and the people involved. And if we can get Patrick on, maybe we can learn more about that when we discuss Bob's other softcore work.
Mm-hmm. Can we Google map that location? Do we know exactly where it is?
That is something that I think we could probably ask Bob. Bob has a memory like a steel trap. He remembers everything. And he's really good. I know in the past I've sent him emails with one subject line, which is the name of a movie, and then I'll give him a questionnaire of 10 questions. He'll write me back paragraphs for every answer, for every question that I have, and sometimes 2 to 3 paragraphs for an answer. He's incredibly detailed. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the last episode. His memoirs are absolutely essential. Very long, over 500 pages, cover every aspect of his life and career. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, because he's told me stuff that isn't in that book. Because it's, there's a page count. If he was going to tell his whole story, it would be much larger than, 500 odd pages. But he might remember that location. So I think we should probably ask.
Yeah, there's shots where you can see kind of out the window. So I feel like someone could pinpoint where that is on the beach, that beachfront spot there. But it'd be easier just to ask
it's funny.
Bob.
There are a few people that are really good about locations in sexploitation films, and that's why if you go to IMDb, sometimes someone has updated the IMDb with exact addresses in Los Angeles and San Francisco, which is kind of nuts. Very specific. Yeah, I've never been a good locations person, but if somebody can pinpoint that and let us know, I don't know if we would broadcast the address, because I don't know if people want to pilgrimage to that address, whoever's there now. But it would kind of be fun to know. Yeah.
Well, that's a nice segue to our guests who might have some specific location, address information regarding the film we're going to talk about. So let's just jump right into it. I'm sure they're chomping at the bit. I know I am. We have Melinda Belless and Dennis Campa. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, and correct me if I mispronounced your names.
Okay, you want to go first, Melinda?
Sure. It's Bellis. Sorry about that. It's a stupid name. It's
Bellis,
made up,
yes.
Entirely made up. Not by me, by my grandfather. And me, I've been in music pretty much all my life with a short detour to get an anthropology degree, and now I work in community radio and do some research with Dennis here on weird films.
Yeah, lifelong movie buff, also involved in radio, community radio, 20 plus years. Just the last 8 or 9 years have been researching. I've always been researching movies for decades, since like the 80s, but the last several years, not long after Melinda and I got that together, I recently got a Blu-ray player, and then I was looking at something weird site. It had been a while, and then I remember seeing something in the Triple X catalog almost 2 decades before called Bat Pussy. And it was a funny title. I never saw the movie. Then I got the Blu-ray, and we watched it, and that led us on this odd path with She-Mob and other...
Well, I think we started trying to research Bat Pussy, and that just proved to be a bunch of giant dead ends. And we were sitting in a restaurant coming back from Dallas, a Bat Pussy Dallas excursion. And he went to the bathroom, and I just started Googling She-Mob cast members, and that set us on where we were today.
And we found someone called
Yeah. So if it's not clear, your guys' specific interest is Texploitation films, correct?
Yeah, it's researching the movies, made in Texas, hence Texploitation, sexploitation, exploitation. We got to thank, once again, Something Weird Video, specifically Lisa Petrucci, who gave that name, and also the adult theaters as well, hence the Vintage Texploitation, Instagram, Facebook website, and so forth, researching them. And She-Mob is, of course, one of the better movies in that regard, we think.
Yeah, She-Mob is an interesting one because Maurice Levy, this is the only movie he did.
Well,
correct?
It's the only feature he did. He was a respected newsreel cameraman. He did independent short films too. He was at NBC bureau chief of the Southwest, actually. Everyone in Dallas in the 50s and 60s knew him. He got involved in NBC TV in Dallas, I think as far back as 1949 at the beginning. By the mid-50s, American Cinematographer voted him Newsreel Cameraman of the Year. He was on the Today Show in 1955. I don't know if that footage exists, but we have footage of him speaking in 1970, which I think I've shared with you all. And, he did a lot of stories in the Civil Rights era. He also... big story in 1957 on the tornado in Dallas, and he was 2 vehicles behind JFK that fateful day in '63 as well. He was a bigwig in Dallas, and then later did this sexploitation movie, and did an underground movie show, and worked for the United Press. But yeah, he was an interesting guy, to say the least.
Well, so the production company, do we know anything about, Lorenzo Productions? Was that just set up by him just to produce this one film? Do you think he had ambitions for further films?
Well, that gets into probably a later question, but I would say that almost there's like 2 truths about this film. Maybe 4 truths about this film. That we know definitely one of the actresses was from Jack Ruby's Club, although possibly more of them were. We know who played Tony. We know Maurice Levy, and we know that it was distributed by SAC Amusements. And that's really it. Everything else seems to be a dead end as far as research goes. So I just today started trying to see if we could find business records, like some kind of Texas big business archive, but that seems to be a little bit more difficult than in other states that I've researched. Say so, because I would love to see if Lorenzo Productions was actually registered or whatever, but it seems like so much of this was just put up as, well, here's some names to put on the film that I don't really know.
But Alfred,
I was, because when I revisited this, I was surprised to see, like, in the credits, I completely forgot, it says copyright Lorenzo. I think it's Lorenzo Productions #1 Inc. And I was like, but it doesn't have the year in it. So I was like, well, this copyright isn't valid. It's automatically public domain now. Oh, yeah. So it was just, but then it made me wonder if maybe somebody registered it with the Copyright Office. Unfortunately, for records prior to, I think it's 77 or 78, you have to go into the actual office and find paper records because they haven't digitized everything. And that was one in my last visit that I completely forgot to research, just to see if I could find any kind of evidence that a print was deposited or any kind of record was deposited.
We don't think it was, and it was. I think Lisa Tucci did tell me it was not copyrighted. So, it's just something. Sometimes there's other movies too where they slap a copyright date and it was not copyrighted. So that happened more than you would think.
Well, I mean, the prints are precious, right? So you don't want to give up a print to the
exactly. Yeah, I mean, there weren't, as we know, there weren't many prints of these movies made in the 60s. We know there are at least 4 of She-Mob made because at one point it was playing in 4 different theaters in 4 different states. So, there were at least 4 prints, maybe 5 made.
What about Alfred Esack? Do we know anything about?
Oh yeah, we know quite a bit about him. I mean, before that, he's from Mississippi, and he produced a lot of, in the 30s and 40s, what were called race movies, movies made for black audiences. He and his brother Louis did a lot of that. He moved to Dallas in the late 40s, had a theater called the Coronet, which he sold in the late 60s. Originally, it was kind of an art house theater, import. And then by the time we sold it, though, it was showing adult movies. SAC was doing some regional distribution, wasn't producing movies as much, but also SAC being Jewish, and so was Levy, a lot of the prominent Jewish people in Dallas, as Melinda and I talked about, it seems like they all knew each other. Yeah,
that's what, oh my gosh, Jeff Burns
told us,
is that all the Jewish people in Dallas were connected. So the main clubs, besides Ruby's, I think there were the
Weinstein brothers.
Weinstein brothers, and there was another person. They all knew each other. It was all Jewish adult nightclubs.
Okay, so that's probably how they met. Yeah. Then just that connection.
Definitely with the connection. And again, everyone in Dallas knew Levy. He began being NBC bureau chief of the Southwest. He was well known in Dallas. I like to joke, if you're talking about Dallas in the 50s and 60s, it always comes back to Levy. Literally, he's everywhere.
Actually, well, I will just mention, I know, in terms of like race films, I think that's why a lot of those films exist now, is because I think there was a book that came out, I think sometime in the late 80s called Treasures of Black Cinema. And it kind of discussed how SAC Amusements deposited this collection of films with an institute. And they were like, oh, it's one of the only existing collections of black cast films of that era. So we have him to thank for like a lot of that history that's still around to be watched now.
Oh yeah, those films, I remember when it happened. I lived in Dallas in the 80s. They were deposited at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. So that's, where they're at.
Yeah. Well, because I think, I don't think that he kept anything else, because we had talked about him briefly with Alex DeSanto, actually in our Milligan episode, I believe, because he handled regional distribution for like New York distributors and California distributors and Florida distributors. And I think Alex checked with the SAC Amusement people, quote unquote, as he called it, and they didn't have anything with the Milligan stuff. So I imagine they didn't keep any of the sex stuff either from any other region.
Yeah, I mean, so they distributed She-Mob, and it was Uncle Tomcat's House of Kittens, which is currently lost. So they, like I said, Levy knew everyone, it seemed.
So what's your hypothesis about why Maurice didn't make any more films, especially that he seems like he had the connections with SAC to keep making them?
Well, Dennis spoke with one of his children who was too young at the time to really take part in a lot of the filming of She-Mob, because it was filmed at Levy's house. Part of it was filmed at Levy's house. He apparently just put all of the money he had into this movie. And it was his children's college fund. And it really wound up, I think, splitting up his family, the movie. And I imagine after that, he just kind of like the whole thing seems like to me, it feels like he got kind of goaded into this in a way, like, oh, you can make a lot of money. You're interested in underground film. And, and then it just didn't pan out. I don't even think Mob was like released in a way that would make any money for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, it played for years. The latest screening we have until it came on video was, I think, January or February of 73. So it played for years. But yeah, I mean, Levy was interested in, and he made artistic short films. Like I said, one is an experimental underground, again, award-winning newsreel cameraman. I guess this was a way to ride the sex gravy train, and obviously it didn't work out that well for him, at least financially, as far as we know. And I mean, Jeff Burns, who plays Tony under an alias and was the makeup guy. He never seen it. He claims he never was paid, but again, his memory was not great on a lot of things. He couldn't remember a lot about the movie, although he did confirm part of it was filmed in Waco, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Well, that makes sense, yeah, because from what I had heard from Lisa as well is that like they've reached out to people or tried to, and just nobody from the Levy family wanted to talk about it. So it does sound like it was kind of a sore spot.
It is. It's very complicated, Gentry. Again, we spoke with his younger son, who is happy to talk with us. He probably still would be, he's in his early 60s, and he filled this in a lot of details, and I shared some of my information with him, and he was real happy, and he shared me some info and some stills. So it is, it was complicated. Well,
didn't he say that they played with the cone bra? Like that was like a like a costume thing. But I think once Levy died, his family, or at least that part of the family, got rid of everything.
Yeah, I mean the Levy family donated a lot of his films. They apparently had quite a few to, again, SMU, which we'll get to in a minute as well, which figures in prominently in another film, which we possibly identified as him.
I'll show you that my tits are as hard as my heart. Ah!
Well, yeah, let's stick with Levy then. I mean, you mentioned before that he was an NBC News, award-winning NBC News correspondent. But you also mentioned he did some stuff with the Velvet Underground. Can you talk about that?
Sure. In recent years, there's been footage of the Velvet Underground performing at White Rock Lake, at Winfrey Point at White Rock Lake, which is a Park Lake in Dallas, northeast Dallas. I lived close to there. In October '69, the VU had like a 5 or 6 day residency in Dallas. I think on the second day they performed International Peace Day, Dallas Peace Moratorium. And in recent years, I think it was October 15th, 69, it was Wednesday. In recent years, footage of them performing there has surfaced. And also, at one point, Sterling Morrison and the band's interviewed by Stoney Burns, who ran the underground paper Dallas Notes. Now, after it's surfaced in recent years, pretty good footage, because there ain't a lot of footage of the Velvet Underground, we know. So, a few years ago, we'd gone to Dallas, looked at the microfilm on the Dallas Notes, the underground paper, which, again, there's numerous ads for Levy's New American Cinema at the Festival Theater, as one to mention. And we found an ad, and again, because it was published every couple of weeks, October 15th and November 4th, 69 edition of the Dallas Notes. It mentions the next couple of shows, including October 18th, that's Saturday. Hey, Dallas Peace Day. Well, October 15th is when that film was shot, maybe. So, but somebody graciously sent us an image from Doug Yule's book of Sterling Morrison with the cameraman. And we have numerous pictures of Levy, and I shared them with you. And okay, we were pretty sure it's him. Other folks have confirmed. But the other day when I was in Dallas, I was looking at the microfilm again, looking at the next issue, November 5th through November 18th, 69, and it mentions coming in, November 18th, 69, the Dallas Peace Moratorium by Maurice Levy features the Velvet Underground, Stoney Burns may be used. So that we pretty much knew, but that nailed it. And I think I messaged Melinda, are you sitting down? So that nailed it. And the fact that we can connect Big Shim with the Velvet Underground just makes us smile in so many ways.
I got the money. We're rich. Now let's have that party.
Well, she's certainly not Nico, but I'll take it.
Big Shim and the Velvet Underground. There we go. I like that. That'd be cool.
Well, Melinda, you said that the footage, you thought to yourself, like, oh, this looks like something that Maurice would have shot outdoors. Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, I'm not a film person. So it's like darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. I'm not really sure what that accomplishes in a movie, but from what I remember, that's the way the Velvet Underground outdoor footage was filmed. It had that weird halftone in it that I'd never seen before, ever. So.
Well, and there's some B-roll footage of stuff Levy shot at a pop festival in Dallas a few weeks before the VU stuff, which had the B-roll footage, as identified as B-roll footage online at SMU's YouTube channel. That has the same odd filter. Okay, someone confirmed who's in social Levy. That's him. So he definitely had a distinctive style, you know.
Yeah, I forget. Jeff explained that to us, Jeff Burns, and I can't remember what he said about that. It was like some technique that Levy had.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and listen to that interview.
We have to listen to that again. A friend of ours is transcribing that interview, going to transcribe the interview. So that'd be good because we interviewed him like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't remember. What did we ask him?
What were these like underground movies that Levy was doing?
Most major cities in the U.S. in the late 60s, early 70s had these, midnight movie shows where they'd show new, independent, avant-garde shorts, avant-garde indie short. Plus, they show some old films like a Serial Chapter, a Betty Boop cartoon, a Laurel and Hardy film. Levy had a few of his films here, but he sought out films from all over the place. A couple of his films were featured, but but people were thrilled if there was a local film there in the audience. What I understand about the showing, and I know that his showing, his midnight movie show, apparently there was a strong smell of herbal substances there. From what I've understood, what I've been told.
Something about explosions. I can't remember. Like one that was filmed by him. It was in one of the ads. Some kind of probably a psychedelic.
Yeah, I think that's the one that had the music by Charles Ives or something.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's a new credit for him. I found out to look at what it's called, but he was obviously a very artistically inclined guy. So he'd do these avant-garde films. What we know about Shima was just to raise money. Although he did write another screenplay along similar lines, which we can get to later. But as we learned.
No, tell us about it now.
Well, we know a little bit. One of his
about the script.
Told us 3 years ago that apparently he had written a screenplay, and again, I don't know if they had a copy. The person since passed on, but I guess it was about 1969, 1970, and apparently it was along the lines of Shima, but it was a Western. Now, that's all I know about it. But it sounds interesting,
Okay.
I'll have to see what else I can find out on that.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, all those naughty westerns that were coming out around that time. Yeah, the late 60s.
Yeah, get a bit of that too.
Well, actually, I had a question about specifically She-Mob, and I don't know if in your research you were able to find if Faster Pussycat Kill Kill had actually shown in Dallas, or if you think that particular Russ Meyer film had any kind of influence on his making of this film, just because the similarities of having this girl gang are very, it's a kind of a common thing. It's eventually in Sexploitation, but the similarities to Faster Pussycat, with especially the leather aspect to it, I don't know if he would have seen that film to have been inspired.
He did. Again, I've not specifically researched it playing Dallas. It probably did. I mean, Meyer's movies played Dallas and Austin and San Antonio, all over Texas, actually. Certainly that. I think Lisa from Something Weird just mentioned that as well. And obviously heavily influenced by the TV show Honey West, down to the opening and the pet ocelot and, Sweetie East and all that other stuff. And, similar opening music, which, by the way, is reused some other Texploitation movies, too.
Okay, so that's what the ocelot
I
is
definitely
from.
recognize
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew that there was the Honey. Yeah, I knew there was the Honey East connection, but I haven't actually seen it, so I didn't know that show also had the Ocelot. Okay.
Yes, great show. Anne Francis, yeah.
Well, do we want to talk about this Jack Ruby connection? Is now the time to dig into that?
Well, again, we don't know how well.
Well, that's what I was going to kind of ask. Like, is there any evidence that they knew that they crossed paths at all?
I mean, I would
Maurice
just think
and him?
through the community in Dallas that they knew each other, and we do know for sure. Once again, this is hiding in plain sight that Joy Dale was a dancer at Ruby's club. In fact, she's interviewed the day after he shot Oswald.
You give me your name, please.
Joy Dale.
Joy, what do you do?
I dance at the carousel.
When you say dance, what kind of dance? What do you mean?
Well, we prefer exotic dancing.
You're an exotic dancer at the carousel, owned and operated by Jack Ruby.
That's right.
That she was supposed to be going to work and all that. So I don't know about the other people in the film at all. If I would assume yes, that he kind of nicked them from the club because they all kind of have that.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be judgmental, but kind of that appearance that could be where they're from. I just think Jeff had said that everybody just knew each other. All the Jewish people knew each other and the club owners and everything. So we didn't know that. Did we know that Joy Dale was, or did I find that out afterwards, after Jeff?
I can't remember. No, I think you found it out beforehand.
Yeah.
Joy Dale. And again, that footage, which I shared with you all of Joy Dale the day after Ruby shot Oswald, that was NBC, would have been shot by Levy. But we don't know where that originated from. But it's an interesting interview, too.
So a couple of years before he would shoot her in Shemab, he was shooting her discussing the assassination.
It's got to be Levy, but again, he would have known them because again, he knew everybody all around town, so he would have known topless dancers and where, and Levy just knew interesting people, to say the least, including a future governor.
Well, so Joy Dale, if she was dancing at the same time that JFK was assassinated, so that was 1963, was she still dancing for that club in 1968 when they made this movie, or did maybe Levy just know her from back then and then called her up? It just seems weird that she would have been dancing that long.
Guy. I can't. I can't.
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, I talked a little bit a few years ago with one of Joy Dale's daughters. She has a couple of daughters. She died in 2017. She didn't even know her mom had made this movie. So a lot of folks, JFK conspiracy fans and Texploitation fans, didn't seem to overlap that much. So it's quite possible she was still dancing, whether at that club or another. I don't know. We haven't researched that. But, even if she wasn't, Levy probably remembered her and thought she'd be good in the movie. That's what we're presuming.
And I mean, the other clubs are still extant. They didn't go.
Oh yeah. They were still active. Again, obviously, it fits in with Dallas being smut sleaze central. So
There was also a co-director listed in the credits for this.
Yeah, Harry not on the print, though. Other sources, later sources listed it. There's actually no director credits on the print. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how Worst's name got attached, but we determined that Levy directed it himself, which is mentioned in an issue of Box Office Magazine from April 22nd, 1968. It mentions, SAC has picked up Shemab. Levy directed Producer for Adult Market. He also directed it. So, I mean, his son, who we spoke with, said, knowing, Dad, he probably directed it. And Jeff Burns in the movie said, yeah, I think Levy directed it, but we found the proof, like that Velvet Underground period proof that he directed it. Now, why Worst's name is attached to it, I have no idea.
Yeah, I thought that was really weird when that miraculously started popping up on IMDb, our best friend and our worst enemy in this research, because it's like, if he shot Heat of Madness in 1966 in New York from Michigan, I don't know how he would have found his way down to Texas to randomly do this film. It's very odd.
Well, yeah, as we know in this exploitation research, yeah, once something gets out there, oh man, I don't want to set Casey off here, but once something kind of gets out there.
Let's not go back to the War of the Roses, please. Yeah, I don't want to go back to Werner and William L.
And Werner Rose and William Rose.
It just gets disseminated, and it's just like.
So yeah, I don't know where that came from, and I wasn't sure if I was like, oh, maybe Dennis and Melinda know this miraculous way that Harry made his way down from New York to do this. It sounds like this is just there's no evidence that this is actually true.
We found no.
Okay. How about Diana, the writer?
Well,
tell us a little bit about how that's kind of unique that we have a female writer on this.
Again, her dad was a writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. So again, Levy knew prominent people, obviously, and in media, because he was in media himself. And in 1967, she did a series of articles where I think I shared a couple with y'all, where she was getting her pilot's license. She also was a sculptress and wrote plays and so forth. I think she was living in the Houston area, like Richmond, around the time of She-Mob, because for Levy's midnight movie show a couple of years later, his Richmond contact is Diana Pascal. We tried to, and Casey, you graciously gave me her contact info.
Yeah, she was the only person that I could find who was associated with this movie. I was like, could this possibly be this woman using her real name on this film? And all the pieces put together that it makes sense.
Every email that I tried bounced. Every phone didn't work. I think one did. I left a message. Never heard. It may have been another Diana Pascal. I sent an email to a son of hers. I think I sent an email and maybe like a Facebook message, and of course, you've not connected with someone on social media, you don't hear back. And they only responded a few weeks ago, and it was, like several years after the fact. Oh, well, it's about my mom. Yeah, she died last year.
Yeah, just missed her.
We just missed her. She would have been in her 80s. But I might still contact the son to see, did she have any records or anything? I don't know if she would have wanted to talk about the movie. But I share with them a lot of info unrelated to Shima. I found a lot of great info on her, because she was an interesting person, and so was her dad too. So, and I need to investigate this further, but the more I look at the movie and pictures of Diana Pascal, the character of Lawrence, what's her name? Looks a little bit like Diana Pascal. I don't think it's her, but they look a bit alike. So something I need to look at some more. Maybe on the follow-up.
I wondered if it was just me. Because for a long time I thought maybe she was Big Shim and she wrote this movie for herself to be a star vehicle. And then I saw the articles that you saw, and I was like, that's not Big Shim. So
it looks
she was not the star of the movie.
So maybe it's her. And Marni Castle. Well, I know we're going to one of the biggest. We found zero info. That's one of our biggest frustrations, I'd say.
Yeah.
Trying to find info. We think it seems likely she was a theater actress. Dallas and Fort Worth had a healthy regional theater scene, and some of the folks in Whit Boyd's movies came from the theater.
And Jeff even was like, man, she was a good actress.
Yeah. So he didn't remember much, he was an actor.
Remember that.
Yeah, did remember that. So it seems likely she was an actress. And she could still be around. Obviously, as Brenda, she's supposed to be a little older, but look at her face and her arms. She was probably barely in her 20s. So she could very well be around. Fingers crossed. I don't know. Or I'd like to find closure of who she was, and how did she get involved in this movie?
I wonder if she was originally, the plan was always to have her play dual roles, or if she got on set and they're like, let's rewrite this. She's great. Let's do two parts.
Yeah, I've always wondered that too. It just seems such crazy casting. She's
actually very good, which leads me to believe that she was an actress of some kind. But no other known credits that we can tell under whatever name. Whereas Jeff Burns was at least one of the movie we know that he did makeup and appeared in.
Yeah, so another thing that's interesting about She-Mob to me is that, there were those, there was a Texploitation scene that you're well aware of, the Dale Berry, Whit Boyd, but it doesn't seem like Maurice really kind of like hung out with that group at all. There's none of those collaborators involved in this. He never like collaborated with those guys. Were they just running in different circles?
What was that? Whit Boyd was like in the Chamber of Commerce. Well, and they might have known each other. There's much more connection between Whit Boyd and other movies than there is with anything else. And Maurice Levy, She-Mob, to me, having watched a lot of these, where it seems like someone just walked up to film and whispered movie. She-Mob is I think a good. It's a good movie. It's interesting. It has a plot, which is more than you can say for a lot of Whit Boyd movies. And it's really well filmed. And I think Maurice Levy just maybe was his own.
He's too good for him.
That film that he did was that we know the other film he did was called October Rhapsody, and it's pyrotechnical interpretation of Charles Ives with the soundtrack by the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. So it just seems like maybe he was in a slightly different echelon than someone like Whit Boyd, who seemed like he was involved with Dallas business, but maybe not the same circle that Levy was in.
Yeah, from what we can tell, Levy again, he was an intellectual. He ran in artistic circles. Boyd ran in business, and Smutsner. He was I call him a Dallas sleaze king, which he was. He owned adult theaters, many states and stuff. Levy just was doing something different, and he was always as NBC newsman. He did a lot of stuff in civil rights, and he would challenge people too. And there is one collaborator. I think the editor of his movie also edited, I think, one of Larry Buchanan's movies too. But that's about it.
Oh, was it Rex? Is it Rex Cromwell? What was his name? He was, because he did a bunch of sound on Larry Buchanan's stuff.
And I know in your questions were asking about him. I haven't determined it yet, but there was a William Rex Cromwell who was like a DJ earlier in Texas. So I don't know if it's the same guy. He died in the mid-90s. It might be, it might not. I haven't determined. Again, it's something I still got to, determine,
Well, DJ and sound recordist.
Yeah, DJ and sound. That sounds. That's very interesting
to go upon. And I'm sure the people in the movie were associates of his in whatever field. And again, people, many different fields. His son sent us a picture of him like the Texas Rangers, so he knew all sorts of people.
I think Melinda is right, because just revisiting this, it's surprisingly well made. Like, especially when you're dealing with like a Whit Boyd, where it really is just like set the camera up, press action, and just let it. Whit Boyd's kind of like the Barry Mahon of Texas, where his movies are very just let the camera roll. But like there are dolly shots in this, there are Dutch angles in this. Like they're like he knew what he was doing. Unlike, somebody like a Whit Boyd or even like a Dale Berry. It's very different from those films.
Yeah, like I was revisiting Hot Blooded Woman, Dale Berry's movie, the other day, and there's like long stretches of just like undressing scenes, bathing scenes.
Right.
And it's like, there's a little bit of that in She-Mob, but it's a lot faster. The editing, the movie just cruises along. It doesn't kind of sit in that one place for a long time.
Speaking of
and the chase scenes,
there's a lot of forward momentum in She-Mob, for sure.
She-Mob, the intro credit music used in Hot Blooded Woman is reused at the beginning of She-Mob as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the music in Hot Blooded Woman is great. It's like that for a lot. I would put that movie on and just have the music on in the background when I would like be cleaning my room or writing a paper.
That intro music also was previously used in Larry Buchanan's Common Law Wife, so it got around in Dallas.
Okay, you bitches, I got your man, and we got a caper all at the same time. It's trick or treat time.
Do you want to talk about some of the other girls that are in this movie? What do we know about some of the other cast members?
Joy Dale's one, lady we know the most about. The other women, nothing. Now, Twig, I know you were all asking about Twig, and Yeah, well, Twig is.
Twig
now,
is great.
There was speculation that maybe a Goldie Hawn thing, but since She-Mob was filmed probably in 67 and Laugh-In didn't debut till January 68, our guess is probably Twiggy. And also, as I learned, there was a column in the Dallas newspaper in the mid to late 60s called Bending the Twig, which was about like advice on like books for children and that type of thing. So maybe they could have gotten the name from that as well.
Sure.
I mean, we don't know who the other... Yeah.
Well, just because she's skinny.
Well. Yeah, really?
Right?
We were just watching that the other day.
I think the Twiggy thing definitely, because she kind of has that pixie cut that Twiggy had. And so it's kind of like, well, this is like if Twiggy decided to do brief nudity and go-go dance all the time. She's kind of like a Twiggy version of Roy Williams and Faster Pussycat.
And by the way, Twig's music on her transistor, that's the opening music from Spiked Heels and Black Nylons.
Oh, yeah.
These Texas filmmakers really had like a couple platters of library music that they just circulated around. But it's interesting because it's not KPM. It's not the music that you hear in like New York films or California films or even Florida films. It really is distinctive to Texas. So I don't know if that has been an area where you've been able to find any info about where the heck that music came from.
We haven't done much on work on it, Casey, but there were several recording studios and music library facilities in Dallas. And, you know, the music you hear in, the movie's Lost and Whit Boyd's Party Girls, we think it might be this one, Jazz Combo. It sounds a lot like them, but again, we're still researching it, you know, because obviously Dallas had, still just somewhat a great music scene of all sorts of music. So, you know, it's
those clubs that have bands, too.
Oh, yeah.
That performed. So it could have come out of the pubs there.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that she was the only one that's credited in Twig as Twig like that.
Don't call the cops, or your boyfriend will be made into a choir boy.
Yeah, Underline Choirboy.
So I'm wondering if that was a dancer name as well, that she was just like, you can use my dance
The
name.
Audience is like, oh my God, guys, they got Twig. Can you believe it? And then you got it for yourself.
It's quite possible. I mean, you know, that's obviously Joy Dale's the one we know the most about. Well, the cast member, aside from Joy Dale, we know the most about is, Jeff Burns. I forget what name he's credited under.
Clyde.
Adam Clyde, yes, as Tony, but as makeup, it's his real name, Jeff Burns. And, you know, Melinda found him on that trip in where we're in Corsicana having something to eat. We found him and we talked to him briefly on the phone I messaged him and he said, oh yeah, well, you know, I did the makeup for the movie. I was in the movie too. I said, was he one of the law enforcement guys? I was the guy in the bed. We like fell out of our seat.
You're like the lead in the movie.
The guy who did nudity and got into the bathtub with Brenda.
That was him.
Yeah.
And you know, we did interview him.
Wow.
One time we went to Dallas, like a couple days before Melinda's birthday one year. We interviewed him. Oddly enough, as I learned later, it was on, I think I mentioned Levy's death anniversary the day we interviewed him. Unfortunately, Jeff didn't remember a whole lot.
No, he did say he was exhausted and spent a lot of the time sleeping. So the bed scenes make sense. He's just there taking naps, I guess.
You're a hard man to please.
But it's always hard.
And that's what I pay for.
Why not? You can afford the best.
My shrinking violet.
That explains that he doesn't have a lethargic presence in this film, to be honest.
Remember, he may have had another job at the time, because he had a variety of jobs. He was an interesting guy, to say the least. You know, I think he was bemused if he wanted to talk. I don't think he'd ever talk to anybody about the movie.
Yeah, he never saw the movie. He was asking us, oh, is there a way I can get money? Wow. And we were like, no.
Yeah. Now,
too late.
No residuals.
Too late.
He did clear up a couple things. He did say, well, we knew it was filmed in Dallas, but it turns out part of it was filmed in Waco. The gang scenes, like their hideout, and I think some of those chase scenes were Waco, or and if you don't know Texas geography, Waco's between Dallas and Austin. Austin, Dallas is about 3 hours north, whatever. 200 miles from my place to Dallas where I went. Waco's about halfway. Jeff remembered it being filmed over several weeks and in Dallas and Waco on and off. He didn't remember. You think with all the naked ladies, he'd remember much, but he didn't. He didn't remember much about that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we know where quite a bit of the movie was shot too. Some of it was shot in Levy's house. Those wonderful scenes with Brenda walking in and that wonderful living room. That's Levy's house in North Dallas.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a gorgeous location.
Yeah, I was like, this has to be somebody's house, like a producer or probably just Levy.
Where Sweetie's on the exercise bike, and the end between Tony and Sweetie. That scene was filmed at the Levy's house. We don't know where the opening scene at the hotel was filmed at, or we don't know where the scene with the two black characters was filmed at either. Jeff didn't even know about that scene when we told him about it.
But that's also really interesting because, we've talked, I know in previous episodes, we've talked about the fact that there really isn't a lot of diversity in a lot of films in this time in sexploitation. So even that little scene is really interesting to see, especially in a Texas exploitation film, because we've heard the stories about distributors in specific regions of the state saying, well, we can't include non-white people in our films, but here we have a film being shot in one of those reported regions where it's perfectly fine. Yeah, so I find that really interesting.
I like your theory that gal was a dancer and he was a bouncer at the club. That makes sense. It could be. It seems like she was a dancer, and again, probably just another buddy or again someone Levy knew, obviously.
Yeah, it's gotta be because she had, how a lot of those clubs are. There's because of her size, she was probably well known and popular in this dance club. It's what was her name? What was her credited name?
Record, and her name was Peaches. I don't know what those clubs are like, but yeah, sure, if you say so, gently.
And her credited name is Peaches Chapman. So come on,
which I love.
Peaches is one of the most popular stripper names. So I've heard.
Yeah.
And what is his credited? Big Bags. Yeah, that's what the big
Bill Bags. Yeah,
Big Bags. But yeah, that's a fun scene. Like Casey said, it's a fun little interlude, and they play it just as comedy. She's crawling all over him. It's cool. Anything else about Jeff?
Well,
who plays Tony?
We didn't interview him again because, he didn't remember much. And, he was a kind of a frail old man. He's since passed on. But he did mention stuff in passing, like that he sang at Ruby's Club, I think. Mm-hmm. He also did makeup on adult movies at one point in Florida. He lived in different places, Chicago, the West Coast. He did makeup a lot. I found some ads of him giving demonstrations of makeup in different states. I go, hey, here's Jeff, so I should share some of those with y'all. He certainly was an interesting guy, and I was happy that he spoke with us, and he gave us several stills too, which was nice.
Yeah. No. Is he gay? Do you know?
No,
did you get that
he was married
impression?
Several times.
Okay.
I know that doesn't.
Well, that's true. No,
okay.
he didn't strike us as being.
Yeah.
Well, it is interesting. The more I think about the credits, it's really interesting that it seems like everyone in the crew used their real names.
Yeah.
Or a lot of them did. Well, the cast did not. Well, the cast hid behind fake names. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, now it's coming back to me. I don't think he was that impressed with the movie, and that's why he used an alias. But, as you said, he used his real name, which is how we found him. And it's possible, the other folks, their real names. Mm-hmm. Now, I think one of them, Harold Williams, how many Harold Williams are there? Probably a bunch. So, yeah, so that's something.
Way too many. Yeah. Right. But even Diana Paschal, because she had, I think you mentioned, she had, wasn't she, I feel like she was a journalist too, wasn't she? She was a writer. So attaching her real name to a movie like She-Mob is a choice. And I think it's really interesting that she was I'll use my real name.
Levy did too. He didn't credit himself as director, but as producer.
Yeah.
And of course, we have several interviews with Levy. We found none where he talks about She-Mob, about his underground movie show and other stuff. I don't know how he would have felt about the the movie, but he used his real name, and and we keep finding new screenings for She-Mob all the time, which always pleases me.
I'm surprised it had that much longevity. I mean, a black and white film still being screened in 73 is wild.
I'm sure you've seen through your research, Casey. By 70, they're listing a lot of these black and white movies in color. I've seen that numerous times in these adult ads. But yeah, I mean, it was showing. I think its last screening was in Chicago. It played Chicago many times. It played Austin, Dallas, Waco, of course.
Wow.
It played Dallas with the Ramrodder. It played in Austin in summer of '69 at a theater called the Capri, which that same building a few years later is where Under the Sun Art Theater is where Bat Pussy is shown. So She-Mob and Bat Pussy were in the same building in Austin at one point.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
I love those little connections. The greatest bad adult movie ever made is Bat Pussy.
Well, so that you said that house was Levy's house. Do you think those cars were also Levy's cars?
Yeah. One of them getting set on fire.
Maybe not the one getting set on fire. That was probably a junker, but
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the Spitfire.
And there were Texas. We paused these. They're Texas plates, obviously. Yeah. It seems like it would have been Levy's or a friend of his. And obviously he was. He certainly was pretty well off, as you can tell by that house in the movie. But it's possible and almost likely that his cars, and he had interesting taste.
How about the Ocelot? Did you call up any zoos to any records of them loaning it out?
Now, who rented this out?
Again, Levy probably knew someone at the zoo. He would have.
Well, Texas also has a long history of exotic animal industry.
Yeah. It's quite possible, but
interesting. I do love Monique Duval in this too. I just have to give her props because she actually has eye makeup very similar to the Star of Space thing.
We love space.
It's very severe and it's very drag. It's very drag adjacent, drag queen adjacent.
And that costume. Oh my god, her wardrobe was just. Yes,
that is barely there.
So many zippers.
What you pay for, I can afford it. Oh yeah,
right.
We often quote that.
I know.
I think I looked it up. There were a couple other Monique Duval, but it wasn't hers. So again, it might be an alias. I mean, she looks like it's not her, but she looks like the lead gal in Hip Hop and Hot and 21. They look vaguely similar, but it's not the same gal.
Yes. I love her.
That's not the same gal. Just like, in another odd research, when I was pausing the park scene in Bat Pussy, I was hoping the woman in the park who got mugged was Twig, but no, it wasn't her.
Well, yeah, speaking of Monique, her voice is the one that's the most obviously dubbed. But I wonder, I don't know much about the Texas film industry. Did they have dubbing studios down there? I wonder if they sent it off to get dubbed somewhere else.
Most everyone's using their real voice because they're very thick Texas accents. I have another accent too.
Yeah, but I don't know if Monique's was. Hers, I think, is dubbed. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
It definitely has a Texas twang. It might be dubbed. Considering all the recording studios, it's quite possible. But again, obviously there was some stuff post sync. There's quite a bit of that I noticed. So it's
right.
It's quite possible. Again, I'm glad you pointed out. That's something I want to research now.
Yeah.
She did send you, didn't she?
Yeah, but what's the rush? You've got to get your circulation back. Besides, any man that's worth $100,000 must be good. Too good to believe without proof.
Yeah, it was probably done down there in a studio because, we've watched enough of these. We would have recognized if it was a professional dubber from New York or even California at that time. We would have noticed. And with it sounds like there was plenty of connections down there that Maurice had. It probably wouldn't have been difficult to get recorded. Trying to think who else we haven't covered. The major players in this movie.
Just about everyone, and we talked about what we can find out. And I will say we were motivated when we first saw this movie a few years ago. We had emailed Lisa Petrucci, Something Weird Video, and asked her about, it's kind of a mystery movie. Well, that intrigued us and motivated us. So to unravel some of it, as I think you all pointed out in one of your previous episodes, a lot of the history of these movies is always going to be a mystery for a variety of reasons,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just kind of the way it is. But each little kernel that you find is like, it's the magnitude of it is still major. So, you keep hoping for those little kernels.
Wanting to find these connections, and like every little thing you find, I go down these odd paths as well. Okay, well, that's interesting. So,
and also I would imagine that, like, because I think for films in New York and California, you can sometimes try to find like casting notices for, in trade publications and things like that. And you can, even if it's on a title of a film, you can identify like a production company or a producer who's doing casting on a certain date or whatever. And I don't know if that's something that would have been done in local papers, like we're doing casting for this low budget exploitation movie. They wouldn't. I don't think they would have specified nudity required, but I don't know how they would have done. I don't think the casting process was like it was in like the.
Probably not. I mean, I have found an ad, I think in a Corpus Christi paper, where it was casting for one of Whit Boyd's movies and contact Ron Scott, who at that time was based in, I think, Corpus. Yeah, I'll share it with you. Now, I think I put it on the Texploitation page. Okay. Now, I think it's for hip hop and Hot and 21 or Spiked Heels. So maybe one part of one or both those movies is in Corpus. But, when we eventually do a Whit Boyd, Ron Scott thing, that's there's a lot of interesting things there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I should probably look at some earlier issues of the Dallas Notes to see if there's any notification about movie being filmed. I haven't done that. It's quite possible, but again, it's probably through Levy's connections about, hey, I'm doing this movie, and he knew these people and want to be in it, and again, hopefully we'll find. I need to get back in the Marni Castle research, see what we can find on her. So far, nothing, but one of these days.
Well, so where I work in New York, I work on the same floor in my office building as a casting agent. Has been doing casting since the 80s, I believe. And I was asking her about, any casting agents that she knew in the 60s and 70s that, to see if she... I was trying to lay it down lightly, so she didn't know. I was like, so did you know any people that did like sexploitation and porn? But she said no, but I think I know people at like the Casting Society and a few other places that they would have casting books for you to look at. So I have to go down that road and try to identify people by face because I don't know what their real names are. So, but it's a whole rabbit hole that, like you said, we're just trying to find the answers to these questions will drive us insane and take us down very interesting paths if we let it let it destroy us.
I think that at least one of the most rewarding things about doing the Shimob research, Casey and Gentry, is that we found out what a fascinating guy Levy was. I mean, Shimob was almost a footnote in his career, considering what else he did. I mean, one thing we hadn't mentioned is he served, as with a lot of these directors, he served in World War II. Towards the end, I think he was in the photography unit. He took pictures of several concentration camps being liberated too. He did that, but yeah,
he was beaten during the civil rights movement, filming. What was it?
The Freedom Riders with John Lewis in Birmingham in April in '61. Yeah, there's a picture. I'll forward it to you. Some kind is reproduced of this cameraman on the ground getting kicked by this guy. Well, that's Levy. And he and the other associates did sue. I think it was a guy who'd been a deputy in Alabama, and they did sue this guy later. I don't know if they won or lost it, but I found some. Basically, Levy was running for his life. But yeah, he
and then being so close to the JFK assassination.
Well, yeah,
amazing.
And the fact that JFK, that kind of he had wide latitude being the bureau chief of NBC. But after the JFK trial, which is, dragged on and on, the NBC bigwigs came down and he clashed with them. And he eventually, probably by the end of '64, beginning of '65, he left and went on with United Press and independent films and, taking over the Mob and stuff. It's just a shame that he died at the age of 52. He died on March 3rd, 1975 in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. He had moved there in the fall of 1970, continuing with the United Press. But yeah, it's just a shame because if we could have a time machine, he's one of the top 5 folks we would like to interview. You know?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what happened after, what did Maurice do professionally after Sheep Mob? But he didn't have too many years left after that, I mean, sounds like. That
was first shown in the spring of 68, and he died less than 7 years later. I mean, he did those independent films of the Velvet Underground, and some other stuff. And then was working for the United Press as well, and that type of thing. He filmed some things in Nicaragua in 1972. I have a picture of that. His hair was really long by that point. He looked like David Crosby, which was kind of funny. Again, I keep saying, just an interesting guy. Again, we didn't know a damn thing about him, and we didn't know it would take us down this path.
Mm-hmm.
Hurry up! Get baby's clothes on him.
We got really lucky that they decided to use their real names on this movie, huh? It's a lot. And I imagine it was a lot more. It was a lot easier to research than something like That Pussy, which is like looking for as many clues as you possibly can.
Well, I mean,
on screen.
I mean, with BP, I think we said it in the commentary, and I think Lisa Ducci said it. It seems likely with Boyd, if not him, one of his associates' involvement, because it displays the same lack of filmmaking skill as his other movies. With that static camera, and it seems likely that he had involved. How many people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Set the camera up, let the film run through it.
Those type of movies in Texas in '72, whenever they did it, not many. I mean, New York and San Francisco and LA, obviously,
right?
These were scenes, not so much here.
Well, I wonder if you guys could tell us about.
We touched on that last week, Gentry. I remember we touched on that last time on Blue Money, where there was that producer who was like the distributor who was kind of like, well, we'll make our own movies.
Oh yeah,
and it was like, Bat Pussy's an example of that. I think where they just wanted to make something cheap for theatrical
or like a theater
distribution
owner,
down there. Yeah.
The theater owner's like, I could buy a porno or I can make one and just play it in my theater. Yeah.
And it's barely a movie. It's something. We don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
No. I don't know what it is. It's an experience. We'll put it that way. I think that's how you have to describe it.
Well, speaking of experiences, I was going to ask, you guys were at that fantastic fest where She Mob was, re-premiered in its new restoration. Just tell us about that experience, like seeing it with a crowd and, the Q&A afterward. How did that all go?
Yeah. It was great seeing it on the big screen. The restoration is really wonderful. It's always fun hanging out with Lisa. It was really, really fun to see something we've been so involved in, being up there and having so many appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, somebody in the audience, I think, asked about something of Dallas. And I said, okay, well, that was just a name. I think we answered one question. Lisa did give us props, but it was great seeing it on the big screen, and and obviously it played Austin 50 years before, and I think July of '69. Nice to have it back here in Austin. And it does look great. And like I said, everyone needs a copy of She Mob in their collection.
The crowd is receptive to it, though, during the showing.
I heard that Bad Pussy.
That's good. Bad Pussy, that might be a little tougher sell.
Even an hour, that would be so tough to sit through with an audience in the theater.
Well, and it's funny, it's that longer print when we did the commentary for it, I think it's only 52 minutes. And it's got 3 minutes of extra footage, including Sam actually getting off the bed. But, we can...
Stop the presses. Sam got off the bed. I still need to pick up that reissued Blu-ray. I still only have the original one that went out of print.
Get it? It's the print's longer. It has the end. I think there's a skip in the middle. Trouble that there's footage in the earlier prints, not in that. But get it. And I have to say, you tell Melinda, one of our finest moments together as a couple doing the commentary for that movie. You know.
Yes, I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm ready to learn. Educate me. I'm excited. So yeah, and I know you guys also did the commentary for Dracula, the Dirty Old Man, which I still need to get as well because I have so many questions about that movie.
I've learned more since then, and yeah, it's a lousy movie, but I consider that Woody Allen's version of What's Up Tiger Lily, because he took an existing film and added one scene with sync dialogue. And
yes,
I'll just say in the commentary, be prepared to have a connection between that movie and the Dick Van Dyke Show. Seriously.
I think that was my intro to you, Dennis. I think that was like when I listened to that, I immediately Googled you and found your Texploitation page.
Campa. If it's music and movies with me, the other one's my dad. Community initiatives. It'll be my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forget. So, well, I keep hoping that the Dale Berries will get restored because I really want Hot Thrills and Warm Chills to be shoot because more people need to see that movie. The sequence beginning before the credits, where the star of the movie balances a glass of champagne on her chest and then drinks it, and there's a dance number, is probably the best pre-credit sequence of any movie ever made. I think it's a masterpiece, and that's one where the camera's just sitting there and doesn't move. It's when you have a good star like that, you don't need to do anything with the camera.
Well, and I'm hoping at some point you guys will do something on. I've had a conversation with Alex about the Warm Warm Bed because I love the movie. He's not hot on it, but I love Warm Warm Bed by Barry Mann. I love that movie. Oh, it's fun.
I have not seen it yet. I'm looking at my DVDs right now. It's on my pile.
Well, I was wondering if there was a Texas connection to Warm Warm
Bed. A couple times. I just mentioned as kind of tongue in cheek that Alex is not that hot, whereas I like the movie.
Okay.
Well, I've done a lot of research on the guy. The pilot in the movie, John Connett, I found a lot of information.
Right.
You sent us some good stuff on that.
Deputy sheriff, worked in music, acted and directed in musical regional theater in New Jersey. A really interesting guy. Part of the Buffalo Bills at one point in Music Man. Yeah, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
How he got involved with Barry, I have no idea.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a weird one because there aren't any there aren't any of those familiar Barry Mahon faces in it. It's just all these random nobodies. I'm like, did he just not care? Was he super checked out of this one? Yeah, I mean, obviously
he didn't call in any of his usual models.
Yeah, he didn't call in
no June, no Darlene, no who was in '68, no Sue Evans even.
No.
He's the only one who ever cast her in anything.
Like I said, and was it Hot Skin and Cold Cash? He's in that too. Which also was distributed by SAC. Yeah. So it always comes back to SAC. Again, another Mississippi, Texas hero needs to be a book or two on him.
On my way back, I better stop and pick up some vitamins. Hell, I better pick up some Spanish fly.
Whatever you think best, dear.
I was going to ask you guys about, the broader Texploitation. What are some of your favorite, what would you recommend to someone who has never seen a Texploitation film before? Other than She-Mob. Can't use She-Mob. Because that's a given.
Okay. Well,
right.
Obviously I can't do that. Well, let's see. I would say BP, but you want to reserve that. I would say I like Larry Buchanan stuff. Common Law Wife is good. I like that. Marge Needs Women. Marge Needs Women. The Trial of Lee Harvey Oswald is a great what if. And
I saw that recently
and
too.
The commentary about luckily Buchanan lived long enough to do a commentary on that and Common Law Wife. I also like Naughty Dallas, another Buchanan, which you can see Whit Boyd in it briefly too. As far as the Whit Boyds, well, they're all kind of variable. I kind of like the Office Party, but for Melinda, it was kind of rough.
Oh, I started that movie a couple weeks ago, and I had to keep restarting it because I was like, okay, where are we? Which character is this? There's so many characters, and it just did not grab my attention. I was like, I don't think I'm not in the right mindset for this. I'll come back to this.
Oh, yeah, the Roll Doldis Office Boy, who's also in Eat, Drink, It.
Yes, I was like, this man needs a new career. I think at this point, I think he should have moved on up. Probably.
What the movies I mentioned, obviously, start with Larry Buchanan and stuff, and going back to the 50s, consider Texploitation, something like the giant Gila monster, obviously, things like that. Which is, covering the whole spectrum of Texploitation. Some of the stuff is only historical, and I'm sure you all can identify with research having to watch really not good movies or really lousy ones again and again to confirm something, like having to watch parts of Hidden Lust and Twilight Cowboy multiple times to confirm some things.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, Twilight Cowboy is rough.
Does definitely have Dora Dildo in it, and it reuses furniture and music from Whit Boyd movies. But other than that, it's atrocious.
Yeah, I watched. I think I don't want to spotlight the worst, but I think I watched Scarlet Negligee, the Ron Scott one. That one was pretty bad. But you have to watch the worst ones to appreciate the best ones. That's how it always is.
The only one of the future things about Scarlet Negligee is, Ron Scott was an alias. His real name was William Hamelman, something like that. So he already has that name as director and one of the cast members. And then he plays another role, I think, as the detective as Scott Martin, and Whit Boyd bills himself as Whitfield as the character in the movie. So there's multiple aliases used in that movie. Other than that, and the opening theme, it's not particularly interesting. But as you said, you have to watch the worst, and that's what I call being a completist. Like I'll try to get all the films of this person or wherever that, and some have a high average. Joe Starno, mid to late 60s, has a high average. There's an occasional misfire, but mostly they're good to great. And likewise with with Texploitation, you have to obviously I guess it's worth it to watch some of the films we just mentioned. And then you get to something like She-Mob or Common Law Wife, which is much better, or Trial of Harvey Oswald. It's sometimes you have to go through a lot of dross to dig up the gold.
But there are also some films where it's clear that the filmmaking style isn't really there. But you have something like Passion in the Sun, which has the most misleading title. There is very little passion. There's a lot of sun, but there's very little passion. And I remember something weird we titled it as The Girl and the Geek, and I was like, that's more appropriate. That was my first Texas movies were those. It was like Girl and the Geek, Hot-Blooded Woman, Wild and the Naked. So like the really nutsy cuckoo movies that just kind of threw everything at you. And those are a lot more interesting to me than, like something like The Office Party or Scarlet Negligee, where it feels like the genre had changed by that point so much. Since the early to mid 60s, the late 60s is so different. And so, and it's a lot of competition with like imported stuff from California or Florida but I always love that it's very distinctly Texas. And I love that. It's very embracing of its region, and it feels local, but very proudly local.
Oh yeah,
I think, for a lot of these films.
Well, as Melinda says, kind of the underbelly or the duality you mentioned to me one time.
Yeah, that Texas loves its sleaze, but also likes to police its sleaze, I guess you'd say. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of like sheriffs. There's a lot of car chases and like cop chases. Right. But then there is always
sleaze within reason. Yeah, right.
Well, one of the most mind-blowing triple features I've seen was, I think it was at a drive-in. I know it was playing in Houston in 1970. Triple bill of She-Mob, The Office Party, and I guess the granddaddy of Nazi-ploitation movies, Love Camp Number 7.
What?
Yeah.
What a roller coaster. That's really crazy.
So that was the bizarre. Well, I mean, as you know, looking through, I mean, there are some interesting films She-Mob was played with. A couple of times it's paired with a mainstream movie. I think one time it was paired with A Guide for the Married Man with Walter Matthau, and directed by Gene Kelly. Yeah, in a small town in Texas.
What?
Too. I'll have to find it. Yeah. I know I shared with you recently. There was what was it? Was it a Joe Sargent? maybe a Joe Sarno movie was playing, or it was some 67 adult movie was playing with the Billy Wilder classic Sabrina, which had been released 13 or so years before, so that was a weird double bill.
Oh, was it maybe like Run Swinger Run? I feel like you sent me something showing like Run Swinger Run, and it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Just the gamut of emotions in the double
they really
feature.
like to cater to their
That's wild.
They like to cater to the perverts here in Texas.
Oh yeah,
like the amount of adult theaters and like strange billings. And I'm from Connecticut, and there was nothing like that going on in Connecticut at all. When I was growing up, there's no adult film theater, nothing like that, right?
Wow.
It was a totally different thing.
Well, yeah, and looking at the ads, I mean, obviously Dallas had a rich variety of smut theaters. San Antonio was very rich too. One of their theaters, the Joy, had various points live band and live go-go girls and stuff, with the movies. And and Austin had some good theaters, so did Fort Worth, but the ones I tend to like are going through the ads are San Antonio and Dallas a lot. And going back to She-Mob, one of its earliest showings was in I think it was May '68 in Omaha, paired with Paris Topless Style, which I always wondered how the much edgier She-Mob went over with the burlesque.
I guess trying to appeal to like a contemporary crowd and then like an old-fashioned crowd.
Sometimes She-Mob was playing with like like a live strip show, whatever, burlesque show, whatever, like in '68 or '69. So you find some weird triple and double bills.
Yeah, when I was digging around too, I saw someone else had found evidence that it played with Milligan's Vapors.
Yes, yeah, one of its early
double bill
ones.
So it's like,
which I know you're asking about the premiere. We haven't. I read that it did have a premiere in Dallas. No date known. The first verified Dallas screening not until January '69 when it's paired with Dave Freeman's The Ramrodder. Yes, it is.
That's a crazy double feature.
And Richard as a project.
Well, the thing about She-Mob, how can you pair it with anything?
Oh, which Melinda was mentioning something. How we know about that apparently private or premiere screening. It's written by a guy who knew Levy, an attorney. I think he's still around in his 90s, David Richard. He often represented Stoney Burns in his obscenity trials, the Dallas Notes. He mentioned, Levy was a weird cat. Me and Ann saw the movie, and then think about where later till Ann Richards, the future governor of Texas, saw She-Mob.
This was at the home screening.
Well, yeah,
it was kind of like a home screening, right?
Screening in Dallas, but again, we don't have a date. Of course, it's not going to be in the paper, so it's something maybe we'll find out.
It wasn't like an advertised screening, right? It was like a kind of like a friends and family sort of thing.
We think so. I mean, Richard got some of the information about Levy wrong in the 2 or 3 paragraphs in his book, Liberal in the Lone Star State. He says he worked for CBS when it was NBC, and She-Mob was one of the first adult movies. So some of but it led us on the path. Oh, this is who Levy was. So that was a big breakthrough when I found the paragraphs on him. Yeah, it just made me smile that Ann Richards got to see She-Mob.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's wild. I do wonder about audience reactions to this movie. Just because there's no trailer that exists either. I'd love to know how they even marketed it. Because it's so distinctive. It's not like anything else.
Lisa had said that the Restoration period is more like an underground movie than a Texploitation, other than the thick accents. But I mean, it does have the Texploitation hallmarks. Thick Texas accents, the crazy plot. Women with big hair, of course, everything's bigger in Texas, so they got big hair, and but thankfully, what's refreshing is, unlike say the Whit Boyd movies, you have a leading man who's actually young and handsome,
right? And does nudity, which is very surprising for that era. Especially because the Whit Boyd movies, those guys usually kept their boxers on. They didn't do nudity in the Whit Boyd
maybe
movies.
Thankfully, some of those guys maybe not.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but it dates those movies considerably. You're just like, this is 68. What are we doing here? Right?
So eat, drink, and make merry. Yeah, in the trailer, it's uncensored ladies, but the guys are still wearing their tighty whities. Yeah. which again is dating it by 69.
Yes.
But yeah, Levy was, again, he was his own thing. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
That's a good point. The male nudity, of course, there's a lot of female nudity in it as well. But yeah, it is a unique movie, and yeah, you're right. I just don't know what the audience reaction would have been. I mean, in 2019, people enjoyed it, and hopefully in other places. I know it was shown in Dallas a couple of years ago too, at the the Texas Theater where I was at the other day. I know they've shown that, and I'd like. Hopefully there'll be more screenings like that, of She-Mob or maybe some of Levy's other stuff. Especially since we now have it confirmed that I emailed SMU, hey, that film I mentioned, it was directed by Levy. Here's the proof.
Yeah, we need to get to SMU because when we originally found out that films had been deposited there, we got in touch with them, and they just didn't keep records back then. So they didn't know where anything was. So maybe now there's some location. Since they found the View film, maybe there's some other stuff in the same shelf or something.
It's quite possible, maybe another print of She-Mob, or something. Another print, the negative, who knows? But
right.
Yeah, it's led us down these interesting paths, and maybe by the time this is out there, we'll have found more information. I don't know.
Well, it's surprising that you found out as much as you have about it.
Well, well, you're welcome.
So
and folks like Kate are definitely an inspiration in terms of finding the information, and you just got find this. And Melinda is a wonderful. She knows how to find things. I mean, she found that Joy Dale footage interview, so she knows how to find information. You found Tony. That's right.
That's great.
You found Tony. Tony.
That's great.
Tony.
Love it.
Oh, my fee? I'm keeping Tony.
Well, any last thoughts about She-Mob? Anything we missed?
I think we may have covered it, and about Levy, because, it is his, one of his rare forays into fictional filmmaking.
I mean, he probably thought he was making a mainstream movie, right?
I guess if he's trying to cash in on the Faster Pussycat and Honey West, it seems like he would, I mean, but yeah, I will say that when we did speak with one of his sons a few years ago, even though obviously some of the family are ambivalent and kind of complicated feelings about She-Mob, he was happy that the film, people like the movie. He said that was gratifying to him.
Well, that's good.
And I just say that if you're out there listening to this and you haven't seen this, go see it. Go pick it up. It's really something else. It's great.
It is. Get the Blu-ray or DVD, either one of those. Blu-ray looks even better, although getting the DVD will give you wonderful Nymphs Anonymous. I like that movie a lot. So.
Yes, which I love. And both features have that little donkey that disperses cigarettes out of its ass. That's the through line on that double feature.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Both movies, one in LA, one in Texas, one in Dallas, both feature this crazy cigarette dispenser of a donkey pooping out cigarettes.
Tony, come in here. Tony, come in here.